Yeah, we're basically want to talk about the concept of repentance and just like everything else, meint seine andere Sachen. So echt können uns machen in such Pictionary game. How's it called, that game? Free association game. You know what I mean? That's hot fast, so I'm saying the wrong word. Ja, we can't spielen in the game, was ist nochmal zu spielen and play into loops. Which loops? No, that's the game that I don't like. The game that we go into doors, that's the one. Every door, and every door leads to others. Anyways, but basically, it's the steht down as I was like under the Blätter, just like we spoke about. What was the other thing we talked about? Oidem habe once, whatever. Let's just talk Charles. I was saying, it could mean a lot of different things. And so can understand that it's a andere Gegend, the Muslim, because I'll help you. For example, I think the most common shot from Shiva is a slip. I mean, basically, they sagt, das sagt heißt Shiva. Es ist wie ein Mitzvah. Ja, du Tarek Mitzvahs, eine von seinen Mitzvahs. Mitzvah lasst Shiva, okay? Statt in der Rambam steht da Mitzvah. Ja, the normale chat, the normale picture from the Mitzvah is kind of contentless. Wieso du hast a contentless? Was nicht du gewohnt ist, was the alle Mitzvahs, Shabbos meint hit Shabbos, nicht namens des Meluchas, mar drei Sides, verschiedene Sachen, what's that game? No, I'll just habe die Bleibeste. It means something, maybe it means something to believe. But it meint toda content. So dort sagt gewisse Sache, was meint. Und Shiva meint, was meint gewöhnlich ist. Die bist nicht Seite, selbe Seite, ja? Die bist nicht gewöhnt Seite, bis die andere Heibut selbe Seite. No, this it's basically nothing, no new information. Man kennt, man wird es wohl gewöhnt. Alle Tariyab Mitzvahs und Mitzvah, we would not be missing any information. Right? Maika Mash Malon, Mitzvah Shiva, Maika Mash Malon. Actually, both all them mitzvah, but next time we'll try to talk about in that context. Probably. That's kicking from out of I don't remember now. That's another, yeah, could be. Like nicht, dann sind uns machen ja nicht jetzt aber schuldig. So actually, für mich said, I'll get that in a second. No, but it's even worse than that. It was even worse than that. Tishua drefes. Yeah, it's even worse than that. Worse than being contentless. It's my commission. Means the days with loves and gate and this tad them right. And all other mitzvahs assume that we have to be good, right? We have to follow them and not that. I was nicht getting it. Ich kann das waren that we also don't need the mitzvah of Shiva, right? The selbe mitzvah with little bit sits to gewinn nechten. Is the one necht was das nicht so. And the hand that you don't need the mitzvah of Shiva to tell us that after you still you have to still be a good boy, right?
Then said they impose this 40 anyway, and they're gonna be punished anyway, so they can't be punished more for killing 100 people than for killing one person.
Is that correct?
How is it possible something does the ultimate bad thing after you go worse than
Meister that? Und dann gerät letzte Mal, was der Ramban, also wir sagen, größere Gehenne, wir sind größere Gehenne because of this problem, right?
Right, but they can't be größer, either.
No, it's all the Mabben,
well, it's gonna kill that person. So either you kill him or you give him life of solitary confinement. And if you kill the guy that
Tachlis, make love. So that
I looked ill. No, he definitely should be. I'll buy with it's all the same stuff. You see, you're looking at it as a brisker, a bit high loving, you're looking, does this person have any chance of redemption? If you have that chance of redemption, then let's Hey,
when it's me mask him, you just that's really a different shot in ways. Because that you can nicht mask him, but
you had not rather you don't do that.
No, let's agree. I just agree. Ich meine, as the way everyone is thinking about it for the most part is actually totally useless. koidem kov also so wird hat nicht geschem information das ist gerecht und auf die landische Gasche kann man aber so mit verschiedenen landische Drisen treffen was gemacht das klar landische Gasche dann ist das Ding auf landische Drisen maybe the mitzvah of Shiva is als comes on verschiedene options kann after the mitzvah of Shiva is das wenn das so ein Video some people read the Rambam like that that's not true that like other than that bring I call them other than that ich weiß verschiedene Sachen maybe but
wherever it talks about Shiva, was
no, this is so that I'm not okay.
the Ramban does though, and it seems for it seems as the posted.
Yeah, that was nicht klar was mein, weil dann okay with kann die Leute that next Woche wissen wegen der alle Psyche to kind of clarify but the end was about sucht nicht not anything thing. It's kind of a story more of a mitzvah. The Ramban that made that Pusik into mitzvah is kind of a very weird reading of that Pusik. It's not. It's his way of reading things that are not resistant to mitzvahs. I don't know if it's not. What past the Pusik beschaft mind singing the guys. So doch. Also the Rambam sagt doch. It's a story. In other words, so that not let back my question. So nicht du information and they mit die Sachen Shiva. As far even lama feel sagen okay, bis gerecht, ein Mensch hat sich viel schlecht so okay and they mit they Sachen teen Shiva is the half garnished. There's nothing to do. It's doing the same thing you were supposed to do without the mitzvah of Shiva. Du verstehst man,
das sagt er auch, statt du was alle Puse so bin. Mal zu man koil mas predava shama mal mit mal live afresh as a biwab so afresh could be so lava. It's a mode because it's redemptive. Well, it's not a mitzvah, right? But it's live up there. So it's unique. So it's so you know, I think it's nothing. If you feel about mitzvahs, you really gram some mitzvahs. A mitzvah you have to do something and do something. You have to do something that you didn't have to do yesterday. Whatever. If there's another mitzvah, you have to do it again, matzah. But that's it. If it's don't do bad, theoretically, don't do bad. But yeah, but I'm doing bad. So for thing, you're not doing bad. Well, but every minute you're not doing bad. But I mean, that's the way the scripture is repentance discussed. Maybe that we should look for maybe the sackability of idols. But was you say it's a mitzvah. It's an accountant list. Okay,
look at that. No, I'm going backwards. But in so
the life.
Nah, it's einweg mit I'm ich gehe der Weg, ich weiß. So I think that this is a big problem. And the zweite, the mehr größere problem was ich habe mit der regular Pshat of Shiva is, if there's any content to it, the content is basically a stecken. In andere Werte, die darfst stimmt. So lass mich nicht sagen, was ich sage, oder am nicht sagen für mehr, also ihr müsst dir Weg. Wer ist der Sput, der will nicht sagen, das was man Schimmel meint noch, das ist was Nägel was, ja. Let me say this is a certain kind of content. Let's even without the chizik part, yeah. There's certain content in that, right? Like you're saying, loften is mine, the guys the guy and all as wieder meinen that all you have to have with rechtliche Schild bei Simonas left, yeah. Loften is mine and at bis shampoo you're done with God because you give him a veg punch in the face. Don't worry, the erste gene groß, I can't rechnen the zweite punch, doch der erste punch auf, yeah. Gewasch mir lang. That's some kind of content. But that is kind of very depressing, you know. Yeah. But the problem, the aggressive problem was ich habe mit den normale Pshat von Shiva is is basically a batch. Heißt andere Werte, man kann machen pictures von mitzvahs, ja? Pictures von wo die mit mitzvah von Esrig ist, Esrig mitzvah von Sikke, das wird das ja sagen. Mitzvah von Lila, Sikke von Shiva, das wird das ja stecken. Versteht ihr, für dich und sie sagt, vergiss von das Chava onische boy. The actual description of this sentence that says do Shiva, it doesn't say, it's not giving you any information. It's not telling you do a certain thing in a certain way or the good thing to do is a certain thing. It's saying you must do things. In other words, Kili McCann sagen, all mitzvahs have some kind of content like I was saying. Before we have mitzvahs, we have to assume that we should do mitzvahs, right? Before we talk about what's good, we have to assume that we should be good, right? They should, but this can mitzvah, right?
What's a mitzvah? What found to Bafaro?
Right, that's not a mitzvah. That's just saying you should be good. Of course, the Rambam hat gefährlich gesagt, dass solche Sachen gibt, nicht stark haben mitzvahs, because it's just azuris, I'll call them mitzvahs. One of the solutions. But the reason it's not azur. It's more than this question of like munya mitzvah. There's no information in that. There's like, yeah, but it not the vet that we cannot.
What are we being called to do then?
What's this is azur wie the Sache, the last scene. In andere Werte, Kitz nehmen sich gesagt, das Team mitzvah, so getroffen hat das Zeitin. That's basically how it sounds. In other words, what was das Zeitin? Maybe it's just like and that's Lucian for the about them wegen return. Das ist schon drin.
I mean, saying, so this job with the outmall, we know we're fighting this. We know this can't look cheese. Oh, I want to
Return a peep shot. I'll be as far as I know, the push the type, man, the normal Dutch is. Guide zurück zu teen, was das gedacht zu tun. Ja,
I thought Chivas to return, Chivas on.
Oh, the return thing. That's a different chat. That. In other words, there's always a chiyuv. The mitzvah, in this heart of it, this mitzvah is like a descriptive thing, and there's a prescriptive part, right? That's the thing, weil ich stehe dich in mein Kopf, schrei, das ist thing. Rav Maschgich, when you go to Rav Drushes about Shiva, there's some content, even Chazal understood that has to have content, that means we should make a Ibayur, was ich gesagt, a Pirov, or you say, okay, so the connect that's all, the altar is the bike, schrei dich noch einmal, das ist die. Okay, so it's basically just the only thing that we have in the thing of Shiva is the schrei. If you go to most Drushes about Shiva, that's really what you're going to hear. The boy that did shit, what are you doing? You're just screaming at me. You're not giving me any content. You just scream at me.
Not giving me any tools.
Besides for tools, there's no information. Like, it's my kind of code of a computer with 0 bits.
Shiva, oh, he's also read to real Zotti.
This looks like This looks me all the information I already knew before this drusha. The only thing I was missing is the shmas. The boy is saying, "Davon sein geht." Yeah, what's the drusha with Shiva? The Rama says, "Mach techoch." What's techoch? Techoch is not, and don't know the information of that. Maybe it's a good practice. Maybe it could be that's also a practice of Shiva. Was a practice with the hocha, yeah? What's the mechir? And the Shiva drusha, Misa drusha. What's the Misa drusha? There's no content in Misa drusha. Misa drusha is not here. It's not giving you any content. It's just saying, this is the thing still shurim. This look them still shurim is on me. I didn't zoom kashim na information. I the man was a bastion. Okay, that's very boring. And it's not only boring. It's kind of like the only movement that it has, the only like thing that it has is like some kind of as we said, like this is a batch. Like this is like we're trying to push you into something. We're trying to make you do something. We're trying to force you to do something or to convince you to do something. Whatever it is. Since the nicht doing them kashim, the Zach von teen. It's nicht do as a teen. There's we're doing only the same thing that we knew already about before.
So how about when you see it in the review that if you bring Shiva, you'll get good things, and if you don't do Shiva, you won't get good things. How's that kind of the biggest? It's the content. You should
exactly. If those good things we could have had without doing Shiva, then again the word Shiva is not doing anything here, right?
The reason why it didn't rain was because you sin.
And they have to sin. That's all. Read.
And that is Shiva. Stop doing bad things. Like what?
But that's not Shiva. That we knew before Shiva also. There's a days of that thing that I was finished of the Zura. I mean, gewiss father mitzvah Shiva. That's all the other mitzvahs. That's what Shiva is just pushing you to actually do it. It may be, but it doesn't mean anything else.
Like 1 second. If what is the fire is you other than what before Shiva, I'm sitting with it loud.
Now you're adding something. Wait, now you just added a whole like crazy idea.
So I'm like, I with the stuff to that idea. As there's such a thing that if you regret something, you think just like if the laws out, you have to regret.
What's the word? I think we need to start what the word Shiva means, where we find it, because we're talking like hiding.
No, so it's talking about so you have the
8-year-old coming up Shiva was like this. That's it. All starts in the Torah, correct?
No, actually, we actually never start with it, but that's a very bad way to find anything out. Just because I come to Shiva in there. And I haven't given the roundabout. Which is what we're going to do today also. We start with the Torah, we're not going to hand anything out. You have to work backwards. That's really the real way. We start, really what I'm starting with is a lot of assumptions that I have. I'm just trying to clarify like one thing and another thing. So ich will sagen mal gewisse Pshat, or a certain idea. And I'm going to show you that the Rambam says it very openly. And that's at least one pshat. There's a case that do enough pshutim, but at least I want to describe one reading. So ich will sagen also, so because of this problem, and maybe because for other reasons also, but mostly because of this problem, and nicht sagen, the solution is do noch, weil es gibt auch viel auf noch Sachen mit dem. How ich mein as Shiva was not meant to be something to do, because there's nothing to do. And can't sagen, dass du Charutas, du verschiedene Brüder mit kein Line, but in reality, these are like, they're not really things to do. They're like ways of expressing the other thing. But it's nicht sagen, das ist ein bisschen Maslam. What I think is that we learned from the Rambam and was the Shadbefetch. And so the Rambam Barichas and in the some sheet that maybe in here was like. The Rambam has two kinds of mitzvahs. The Masse. The Rambam gesagt, and yeah, exactly. The Rambam gesagt, and it's that kind of mitzvah that's important that the Rambam does, and there's a big machlokes about it, and it's a bit in the moment. The Rambam gesagt, dass du mitzvahs sind wichtig, ist du mitzvahs sind nicht wichtig. You have to have this happen. Du mitzvahs sind ikrim, du mitzvahs sind nicht the ikrim, it's the tofel or the anaf or the however you want to say it. And it's important because in the Rambam's world, ikra mina are one of the mitzvahs, and not only one of the mitzvahs, all of them, based on at least almost all of them. He tries very hard to find a wisdom for each of them. Nicht alles in Amish mitzvahs, but the größte heilig hat permitten auflegen mitzvahs, and man kann wissen, wie so in Sefer Yada to Allah anlegt von mitzvahs. And the Rambam's organization of the Torah, I don't remember if we discussed this here, that we're trying to organize the whole Torah. It works, this Tarek mitzvahs, but these Tarek mitzvahs have mitzvahs that are really important. In other words, in the language of the Rambam's Prukim of Time and mitzvahs, was his mind to say, for alle mitzvahs haben a sibbe, for was dienens liliv, for the matzah, could fara efes, right, for something else. What's that for something else? So there's different, you have like a categorization of 3 and 4 different things, sometimes for social reasons, sometimes for political reasons, sometimes for mitzvah reasons. And now all of these reasons themselves need a reason, and they themselves need a reason. And the vet is in was davon man get the political society, man, was hat man von dem. The third of them is, and durch dem geht man kennen haben, we call it Schleim Sichlis or Dweikes, however you want to call it. Get kennen, man verstehen da. Eine andere Wette, geht oben der richtige Dice. Eine andere Wette, sagt der Rambam, meile, wenn ich sage, dass du am Mitzvah von einem Minute, this mitzvah doesn't need a reason. This mitzvah is its own reason. It's basically, if you think about it, mitzvahs of a minute are like God. They're their own reason. That God is his own cause. Mitzvahs of a minute, which Rambam tries to make as many of them as he could, because he believes that it's very important. But wenn ends von Tam mitzvahs, and Tam mitzvahs is nicht nur Tam mitzvahs, it's auch die ganze, like I'm saying, when we talk about mitzvah kalak or chamir, and Rambam totally not agreeing with that Mishnah that says, the way that we read usually that mitzvah, is do a mitzvah kalak, shiata daim matzvon, and to kill alle mitzvahs in Gelach. The Rambam sagt beferisch, auf jene Mishnah sagt der Rambam, lengt es eine ganze vergehte Wege, sagt man kann ja wissen, welche mitzvahs sind aggressiv in der Zweite, wie weiß man, sagt, das schreibe auch nicht, lot verschiedene Wege. He has ways of knowing, just not always exactly, but mit der Lamaß, es ist ja du mitzvahs kalak wie chamiris. And mit darf chashes nach neftet mitzvah kneged schura, meaning there's bigger mitzvahs than smaller mitzvahs, and we have to know which ones are more important than the other ones. And why the most non-devet is listed are organizations from the ganze mitzvahs, when it's read from the mitzvahs or different, the Torah, what it's all about, of all these things. The best way to have it is we have like a hierarchy of mitzvahs. The hierarchy of mitzvahs, just like I'm saying, it's one of the better ways of seeing that is in the time. Under the Werte, sie sagen, dass darf tun etwas, weil mit like Tfilm, weil der Tfilm demands von der Eiblischte. So that's like one step removed from the reality, one step removed from the point, from the Tachlis or the Olam wie alles hat Werte. Masch eingein. So therefore, even when we have a reason, it's really not such a good reason. And that's why all of those kind of mitzvahs, Rambam doesn't say it beferisch, but man kann aufregen alle Tam. Von dem ist es nicht immer ding mitzvah sichlis, und muss man auf Sadig in his language. Aber das ist nicht immer ding mitzvah sichlis. Sadig sagt, dass Shabbos ist a mitzvah sich. Nicht anti-Seich, was auch nicht Seich, aber der Seich nicht im Kaim und Shabbos. Shabbos like the Sach, Shabbos Rhythmen, Shabbos der Mann sich von der Eibischte, weiß was. Also nicht kein mitzvah sichlis, weil wir machen Dienstag. Was ist das Shabbos? Ja? So in other words, in the Rambam's language, it's kind of a accidental mitzvah. In andere Werte, the Pe'ila was in Tien, the Sach was mit det, the Litzim alle mitzvahs Masis come out an also. The Sach was struggle only live, that get the Sach, is Val, dog them. Actually, it's 2 steps removed because of them get man like get the society, end of them get man can, or sometimes it's only 1 step removed. Different mitzvahs have different levels of you removed as an fin the thing. But the only mitzvahs that really make sense, in other words, the only mitzvahs that are really important, are the mitzvahs that don't need a reason. This is a bessere Teres, and fragt Tame mitzvahs. A bessere Teres zu sagen, dass ich darf nicht gehen kann, dann wird zu treffen, ob es Pschettel, was das ist, ja? So wie es Kishmek wurde lesen. Now, the Rambam has a very long list of those mitzvahs. So let's aufwillig werden, lassen wir da warten ein bisschen. Der Rambam hat gesagt, so der Rambam basically in Peirik, in Chayle Gimel, der Rambam in Chayle Gimel, Peirik, Lamedheit, he made a list of all the mitzvahs. He divided them in 14 categories, which are almost, but not exactly the 14 spurim of Mishnah Torah. And the Rambam hat gesagt, die erste Kategorie ist die Mitzvahs von Mitzvahs von das. Und die Mitzvahs habe ich gesagt, ich dachte, ich gebe Gasse über Verseite. It's obvious. They're self-explanatory. Und wie steht die Mitzvahs? Die Mitzvahs sind basically the cipher. Mixed to Brute mit dem, but for the most part, the whole first cipher of the Rambam. And ich habe es gebringt, if you look in page 3, yeah, es steht cipher ist, und es steht also, was ist cipher, the erste cipher von the Rambam, but he actually basically repeats it somewhat, and this is like based on the Moed is based on this, whatever way you want to do. Page 3, steht, was the erste cipher von the Rambam, this is the mitzvahs, it's important, that's mitzvahs, because the anti-philosophies are very philosophies, as they say philosophy is very nice, but you can't make it in mitzvahs, because then you ruin the whole idea of mitzvahs. Nicht exactly. Kids, we darf reden wegen dem in der andere Ski haben sie reden wegen dem. Das ist der Mitzvah ich darf mal schreiben, eine andere Werte. Ich rede das, wo we sometimes call it Gilma Ikrim, but the Rambam doesn't have Gilma Ikrim only one time, and Sefer Hamadi has different categorization. So look at my list. And I'll tell you how the rest of the things fit into this. And this is Sefer Hamadi. So this is the Sefer Hamadi actually includes a lot more than 5-6 mitzvahs that he did in Visa heißt this, in Cipher, and under Cipher. And Version was nice where he did his Ikrim. And it includes noch a Sach mitzvahs, and I'll tell you the basic way how he understands it in Rambam. It says I didn't bring that whole Peirik, but Peirik Lamed Vov Zukter, it's can only quote it, Stickel wegen Tshuva. Basically, Cipher Hamadi, it's wichtig, das zu haben, weil Sach Menschen, this is a kitzig Wudel from a Sach. You'd see the basis of this in a lot of different Shirim. Was in gelernt in the one half in the year. Basically, when we talk about Ikrim, so there's basically there's two very influential ways of understanding the concept of Ikrim. Ein Weg is Ikrim as logical axioms, andere Werte in some religion, and just like every other, how do you say, every other discipline, every other body of thought, body of knowledge, body of stuff. So hat gewisse Hanoches was auf sei hängt die ganze Sache, right? In order to believe in... Right. If you order to believe in math, you have to believe a certain... Okay, it's complicated. You have to believe a certain axiom. That's when there's coming... So it doesn't actually go both ways in a minute. Actually, somewhat only goes one way. But nonetheless, nicht darf man keine rauslernen von the axioms alle mitzvahs, but at least alle mitzvahs are a stein of the axiom in the negative way. If you don't believe in God, you don't have the same right. Or if you don't believe in Torah Shemaim, then basically Torah can't start to make sense. That's one way, and the Rambam definitely acknowledges this way. Yeah, that's a good question. This is not finished. This is going to say. But this is a bit like the Rambam definitely not that. This is sicher a wichtige Sache, right? It's definitely true. This we can't argue, right? Of course, we cannot argue with this. Of course, it's important. The things that are logically important are obviously more important than, at least in a logical sense. And da haben wir Ding von dem, okay, schon andere. Jetzt, der zweite Weg ist, the problem, the Rambam sicher halt that this is a real way of understanding Ikrim. This is really, in other words, this is part of his criteria for putting things into Ikrim, obviously, but it's not actually what he's trying to do. So, the zweite Weg is basically zu sagen, Ikir, zu sagen, and nicht in the sense, and this is the other shot that people understand in the Rambam, because, like you say, there's a lot of this in his list of Yidgul Ikrim, at least there's a bunch of things that cannot really be understood as logical axioms for Yiddishkeit. Well, certainly, the only thing that'll happen, Mashiach won't come. Without the free slave, and I feel about him. Right, other can't say things of andere Sachen. And it goes the other way also. There's actually some logical axioms to the Torah that he didn't include. For example, Bechira, which the Rambam himself says in Hilchos Shiva is Ikir, meaning it's a logical necessity for the Torah, but it's just an Yidgul Ikir. So obviously that's not really what he's trying to do. For them to do a zweite touch von Ikrim. The zweite touch von Ikrim is Ikir nicht in the sense, in this Sefer Ikrim's language. Nicht in the sense Ikir as in the sense of root. Ikir is a root. And this Ikir the sense of Beruch Mazoin is Ipoite Sashakel. Ikir and Tuffel. Not Ikir and Anaf, Shoirish and Anaf, and Ikir and Tuffel. And Ikir and Tuffel mean, this is the wichtigste Sachen. In what sense is the wichtigste Sachen? Like I'm saying, maybe it's the most important mitzvahs, maybe it's the most important maybe it's the most important things they have to learn first. And they got in the couldn't let me it's like a pedagogical Ikir. maybe it's that Nelf shot, and maybe it's different ways. I was Paritas in Daffelstein.
So you didn't miss all that it come up, but then make it up with 1,000 of the squad and money.
And maybe me making up. When I care at Duffel, yeah, all of these things, I think it's half from the Epsheeten. Again, that's a question of the exchange rate. Right. It's a complicated. Again, according to the Rambam, no. According to some people that argue with him, they can argue with them. The Rambam definitely holds that this is ma'akif. So this is the sentence is ma'akif. Now, the Rambam in its might like
it's suddenly that the is just like the.
It depends which ones. In other words, there are ones like I'm saying. That's why the problem with the Rambam's list of 13 ikrim, which I think we shouldn't take too seriously, because he doesn't actually work with it most of the time, only once. Is a mix von alle. And andere as again as Mashiach could be exchanged, but Matthias Hashem can nicht. So the Rambam himself makes Kalikim. And based on ganze Shia, I have a lot of proof that the Rambam, there's different levels, there's different kinds, there's different kinds. There's some of them that could be exchanged, some of them, I mean, not some of them if you're a goy. For example, this is my good like proof. If you're a goy, you definitely don't have to believe in Tvias Moshe. Don't tell me that you do, even there's a Rambam that seems to say that. Doesn't make any sense. Like, the going to team it. Most Banjah Kimmel saying, what's the from them? But the goy definitely has to believe in God. Maybe not even Dina with the Zura, because they're logical or so there's different levels. There's definitely different levels, and I'm not in the same way that the gold has. Okay. That's bad. If you ain't get it, that's the second chapter. The third thing that I'm very focused on in this concept, which is important for me in everything, is that the Rambam is actually trying to do something very important. It's not steer with other Sachen, but it's an important thing to understand. We're trying to organize the Torah and the Torah is a very big mess, and at least in the way it was received from the Talmudic tradition, very messy. And the Rishonim, since the time of the first people that counted mitzvahs, actually, we're trying to organize it. The whole idea of Tarek mitzvahs is more of an organizing principle than anything else. And this is Arichas. Aber was nicht kann auf Kminel Halacha oder anything from was Kamat, was the Tarek mitzvahs oder nicht. The ganze Sache ist trying or it's organizing the Sache. No, the Rambam, and because he felt that thought or faith or belief or knowledge is very important, so obviously that has to be like the main part or one of the big parts of the organization of the Torah. And the Vet, which is basically the whole Torah Shvalpeh. I got the Sefer, 1 out of 14 is basically about knowledge, Sefer Hamada. And then it's wichtig to happen, because when you have this thing, you start to realize what he's actually doing. In other words, how he's taking this puzzle. Als du Member, als ein Member versteht bald, sie mucks, weil ich was ein Member versteht, das aber der Sur ist weg. So verschiedene Members and Sachen. He's basically piecing it together to create a coherent story, which has a beginning and an end, and also, very importantly, a größere Sachen, kleinere Sachen. There's like Klulim and Brutim, there's like main, each mitzvah he tries to do in the beginning, like gives you the more, but then there's like details that are less important. And therefore, when I talk about the Yesod Ha'adah, this is wichtig to happen, because there's actually many ways of organizing them. And that's why I think that in the Rambam himself, and definitely in the way we think, it's important to not get stuck on a certain formulation. Because even when you talk about logical axioms, a little broader definition than that. And I think maybe even in logical axioms, there's many ways of organizing things. In other words, it actually changes a lot the way we start. We have so can sein, als nur ich verkehrt alles da nehmen, doing it by that man or dort, and then college I must follow like it's on this. Then it's not like you can't really ask a question. This day, this at the end of the day. It's like it's kind of like dominoes. If we start here, then this connects to that, and that connects to that. That connects to that, but I could actually rearrange the whole thing, and both of them are logical and beautiful orders. But might nicht as eins das Tier of the. So for example, this is my big example. In the concept of an ikrim, what we did is inside from Mishnah, which is his. Also is the early first work. It was like 30 when I wrote it or finished it, and it's also his work that was the most written for the people, for the Manam, the Yidden, the Mishnayos, Chevra Mishnayos, from the Smedrish. Is hat gemacht die List mit drei gesagt, der Boy saying es ist wichtig, wie bald es in es ist befährt, es ist wichtig zu wissen, das at least that's important, that's knowing this notice this or whatever. Let me organize it for you. How am I going to organize it for you? He actually, even there he had different organizations, because in all his Agdomas he focused on different things which were important to him. But and they got famous list was which is only like one. I think even the Persian Mishnah, it's only 1 out of 3 or 4 statements of what's the most important thing. But Lama Days Obladen, so they list is okay. Let's make a very simple numbers list to the Sachen. And the Rambam himself once said, "Why do I give numbers to things?" So you know that why do we give numbers to things? So that if you'll erase one, it's a check. It's a redundancy thing. That's why if this by mistake at 2 is 5, hey, wait, there's missing 1. He said there's 13 and there's only 12. That's all. It's just a mnemonic aid, like it's a memory thing, it's an organization thing.
If the eagle is so important, why in his monumental?
Now forget if he look this is not important. That's what I'm trying to say. What is it's a certain he did, but in a different way. That's what I'm trying to say. Exactly. Yeah. So you came in Nachasai. There's Nachasai. Besides Sefer Hamad, the Sefer Hamad is like basically his final, more authoritative pshat work, which is trying to take all the mitzvahs and organize them, and it's based on Tarek mitzvahs. If you see, right? They mentioned line and getting grammar, but I geschrieben in der Agdoma the list of Tarek mitzvahs which he worked out in his Sefer mitzvahs. They geschrieben Vater, and noch mit jede mitzvah, jede Aloch, they geschrieben on top which mitzvahs he's explaining here. Like he's trying to organize everything around the mitzvahs, although it's kind of complicated because if you learn Mitzvah of Bas, most people don't know which Mitzvah of Bas it is about, right? So the Chiddush is dran darf happen, wenn der Rambam macht nem Mitzvahs nicht, like macht für seine ganze Masechta, der ganze Hilches Torah Vanitten, nicht echt a Psa Mitzvah, das Torah Vanitten. Man says, yeah, the Rambam made such mitzvahs, and if you read those mitzvahs from Mushal, this is a good example, by the way. Those are mitzvah, Luden Bilches Shomrim, literally, and the Rambam, even before they made, that's not a real mitzvah. I mean, man darf auch Hashem Yichid, wenn man geht in Besen, es gibt Hashem Silche, Luden Lekai Mitzvahs, Luden Bedina Shomrim. What they really do, I guess, categorizing, because there's like whole Masechtas, but Mitzvah, wegen was Retzach, wegen Hilches Shomrim. So where does this belong? Okay, this goes under the heading, Barshas, welche Barsh is this? Kisaitzai, Barshas Mishputim, Heldina Shomrim. And that's like the mitzvah, Luden Bedina Shomrim. It's not really like, guys, welche mitzvahs, I don't know of which nom them, I'm going to show you another Shiva, but it's like, I don't know, so,
as Amalent, Manishmakar, Mitzvah, mit der Teure, als Amalent sagt, was haben wir mit der Abun,
Puss, wer ist bad.
and shot, you want
Ich kann auf Taiwan zu machen, das ist dann,
okay, speculate. No, I'm just giving you the example. So, if he was saying you could technically learn entire Basra, and you didn't learn anything about the Bible.
So, according to what I'm saying, it's not true, because there's the other vertical. I see just the message, not that it is. Okay, if it just doesn't really make sense what he's saying. Go, please, man sucht das mit der Reise, ich gleite, dass verstehen, man das ist keine Sache, was kennen sollen. Ich bleibe es eine Fahrer in der Ding. Okay, comes on. The best okay, ich kann nicht sagen.
I'm okay with that. I'm just
no, I'm just trying to say that I'm just showing you a good example that I just thought of, that how the mitzvahs are really just a categorization concept. It's not really like doing mitzvahs like finished. Okay.
It's just a way, using it as a way to organize.
Yes, a very clear, simple way. Yes, and sometimes now it's very important, and this is actually something that you have to realize. The Rambam has the list of Sefer Chinuch, the special entire mitzvahs, the Chayda in the side of Torah. That's kind of totally not interesting to the Rambam. Who cares welche Parshas steht welche mitzvah? Was did actually is a guide of a topical order. He did take ein mitzvah from Parshas Noach, ein mitzvah from Parshas Tzom. Okay, these belong together, right?
What was in there? When this is a test thing that shows up. So what was funny? It's funny that the welcome whenever had to speak the number person, and it's a mitzvah. Right a cool line. So if I say was it was a so like it's when a mitzvah is a commandment. So they think about it as like a rule. That what's a rule that is about don't cross the fence. I kept noticing that because I'm now I didn't rule apply fence. I didn't cross the fence. To buy this, always have the.
There's different kind of mitzvahs, this ritual. There's very general.
But these are mitzvahs. I'm not a mitzvah. I did. Oh, this guy's a very important to reason. There's a lot of mitzvahs, and you respect people.
Good thing. There, the translation is good things, good deeds.
See, each deed of its own is a little bit funny to be a deed. Is a mitzvah? Each individual should have every person she may feel better. There was one deed that's called giving somebody milk, and the next one is actually.
No, what you try to say? This my time the Messiah,
I'm saying that when I realized So the mitzvah is a number that you're trying to organize something. You're just trying to.
The Tadek mitzvahs is definitely like that.
Technically, it doesn't kind of add up with it.
It's kind of categorization of all different things that Torah is talking about.
All supposed to be good things we should be.
Oh, that's your saying, but even not good things, right? It's a good thing, it's not a bad thing. It's like a it's a kind of thing, and this is like it's exactly. That's why I don't think that we should look for what the mitzvah. When is a kind of mitzvah? So that's the let's what's in mind. In the Rambam's, at least in the Rambam's way of organizing the mitzvah, it doesn't really mean anything. What it means is a very good, useful way of making sense of the Torah. In other words, the Torah is like a whole bunch of text, right? Right? So, for example, the first thing that, but this is I'm just getting foolish to come to the first thing that mitzvah does is it cuts out the things that are relevant and things that aren't relevant, right? That's one very important thing that actually some people are very broigus on this. And under the mention of basically you're stating, when you do Tadek mitzvahs, you're basically denying the reality of most of the Torah. But there's 630, there's much more than 613 psikim in the Torah. And all the other ones, they're not mitzvahs. In other words, firstly, some of them, exactly, he figured out all kinds of different, but in practice he doesn't go with that saying that he said in that Krashmini. And Zik had sich gesagt, Psikim sind mehr real and Psikim sind weniger real, as for all practical purposes. Und darf gleiben, als es heilig und interessant mit alles, aber es ist nicht.
So, and do you say there are verses in the Torah that seemingly tell us to do things?
Yeah, definitely. That's important. Shirushim are all about this. Okay, ich will nicht jetzt an this. Ich will zurück to this as we're trying to organize the Torah. Okay, let's forget about this. Nicht forget. I guess it's I just it's a bit side track. Yeah, and naturally in 90. So once we did, so now this is why it's important when we say the Rambam made a minute the mitzvahs and this sort of thing the ganze Schmiss, which the Refresdui asked from the Rambam and the Ramban andere mentioned it doesn't make sense to have a minute as a mitzvah because who is the mitzvah? Doesn't begin this question. We're not really trying to make it into Chai Vataliya's mom, and it's important to have a minute. Everyone agrees with that. And in the Rambam's world, this has to be a mitzvah. Mitzvahs means the things that we have to know or do or feel, and these. Obviously, we have to know about God. Now, maybe it's not before the mitzvah, not relevant where we know. But just in this sense, you should understand. When we say the mitzvah, you don't have to go looking for visa mekayim or how it logically makes sense that should be a mitzvah. All these questions are not really relevant because really, more importantly, we have this concept of mitzvahs and we have to fit in everything important into them. And we have to organize them in order to, like I said, outside the parayas, other side the Hakashivas, other side the logic, some kind of logical grouping, and therefore that's what we're doing. And therefore, in the Sefer Hayad, when the Rambam is Getin, in the most final way, which is more or less he explains his reasoning in these Perukim and Chayle Gimel Amoyre, or most of his reasoning, and in Zukt. So Zukt as well. So now that the first book is Mitzvah Shebedas. That's very important. The Mitzvah Amada. In other words, this is basically the cipher of things that more or less I don't have a reason. They're their own reasoning. They're self-causing mitzvahs, yeah? And Lama say was starten Sefer Amada goes like this. So it's the that Torah, obvious, right? His Torah basically is for it has some mitzvahs also. It's really important to realize there's some practical things that he puts in the Mushal. His Kiddush Hashem started noch to say that Torah because in the Rambam's world, because this is a broader conception of it. In other words, of course, fine is nicht mekayim mitzvahs Kiddush Hashem, mitzvahs Kiddush Hashem, and mach nicht b'zir nevish. It's kan God. The Rambam's beferish is no over of yana mitzvah v'nig dash. This the event can koifer. So this the definition of Sefer Hamad has a broader way of grouping things into them, but it's a concept of minute because this is about this is a mitzvah that's directly about declaring your allegiance to God or something like that. Mashanka mitzvah Shabbos is schon noch high levels. Other than the Rambam and also the whole Tot Tilchus Mechik Hashem. So that mitzvah was Mechik Hashem. Nothing covered for the Irish this moment. That's the mitzvah. Therefore, what I'm talking about. The Irish the not covered for the Noman. Nefesh Afule B'Shmoy Teshuvah, which is actually didn't put, but he says in Moira that belongs to this group. Verschiedene Sachen. And that's also so that Torah. And then in the end he talks about Lachas Neviah and Lachas obviously so that Torah. And something I don't even know Torah because it's a very, very cool one. The next halacha is basically Lachas so that Torah is Lachas Dayas. Lachas Dayas is the Rambam's ethics basically. Translates the ethics in English. which is of course the thing. And the matura from the Trump is halt clear as the matura for Rav mitzvahs are so you should have good diets meaning good middays. Ja, hoben nicht essen zu viel und nicht it's literally a mitzvah in the Rambam. In other words, these are things that a human being has to do, and that's what mitzvahs mean. Welche mitzvah is this? Well, doesn't really matter, and that's why it connects to Mesias Hashem. Das ist so verschiedene Wegen, wie es connects sich, but this is like part of the point, part of the more important thing. Yes, now was noch dem ist du Hilchas Talmud Torah. Hilchas Talmud Torah is looked at Rambam in Sign Mode in this Peirik. And if you read in Sefer Yad, even in the beginning of Sefer Hava, it says like this. It says like the mitzvahs Shema leint man was, wo haftu verstanden, wo haftu the Rambam. So steht dort, was leint man die Parschen jeden Tag, steht dort Mesias Hashem, wo hafu sorry. Ja, Hava, wo haftu Hashem lekech. Ve Talmidoi, in the man tem Oisam, shehi ya yisvod agudel zepsazadoshen. Andere Werte, now you have to think, this is another categorization somehow. We could say, there's 3 ikrim. Welche 3? Chabarambam and Sefer and Hilchas Krishma. Ich da Hashem, Aved Hashem, and limit the Talmud Torah. Now, how is Talmud Torah ikre? We have to think how the Rambam thinks about Talmud Torah, of course. Talmud Torah literally means be a philosopher. Aved Hashem meint auch das in the Rambam's language. Es meint Lishma, and so meint basically eine Have Lefi Adash, it's off of Shiva. Aved Hashem is also basically translates by the Rambam, be a philosopher, or be a mystic, however you want to say it. And of course, Hilchas Talmud Torah, ja, nicht bechoike, no, yeah, bechoike, but the Rambam fertig sagt dann, ja, Masse Bereich ist lehne Masse Bereich, ist Masse Mekobe, ist lo der Rambam makim von der Havas Hashem, but this is, hadur ma wie in der Hava, also sagt der befertig, and so that Torah.
And it brings you in recognizing,
yeah, we're to appreciating him and to loving him, all the things. These matters and das, and not Torah, in the Shiva. So I have is like it's more of a avoided way of saying it, but it's actually saying the same thing if you think about it. And Talmud Torah, of course, so what is Talmud Torah according to the Rambam? So Talmud Torah has 2 parts. The Munigler Neste, yeah. So the Rambam and Hilchas Talmud Torah. Leute Mashle Shudam, was the Shnois according to the Mikra Mishnah Talmud. So the Rambam, yeah, that's of course we have to know how the Masse Shias all starten noch für the according to wissen the Shimale Kreise Huse wie ein. In noch dem darf mit in Talmud. So the Rambam Talmud means Gemura, ja, verstehen. So der Rambam, wenn du bist ein bisschen größer, lebt nicht, gemacht nicht, weil du denkst schon alles mehr wein. No Talmud. So der Rambam, like sie Aschire, was meine ich bei Talmud? This is how I'm gonna read it, at least. Wenn june man kruem, Masse mit Kova ein Bechlal Talmud. Andere Werte, the point of Talmud Torah is actually that you should learn philosophy, or what I just told you in the four Brokim. That's the Nig, das heißt Niste. Nigle is not as Vechuna. Of the Talmud Torah is, of course, Talmud Torah literally means to study. I mean, of course, it belongs to the Hilchas of the mind, the Hilchas of mitzvahs of the mind, mitzvahs of Sefer Amanda. It's very obvious, and it's very important to realize that Talmud Torah is the mitzvah. It's like the action. It's basically, really, Talmud Torah is the mitzvah of the mind. Talmud Torah can kill him.
it means reading the Torah.
Yeah, but then I'm a
First part of the Torah is last and full.
yeah, man kann so nah sein. That's a Pidrash, aber other, yeah, the Rambam lent us to go into. So we actually go backwards, but that decided that's the thinner.
It was a mess. And they didn't to see some fat shit.
Ja, andere ganze Schmier ist das.
Sorry.
That's true. Ich habe von dem ganzen Schmier auf Seite. Okay. Es war klar, dass Rashi and Ram. Okay. Yeah, Rashi and Ramban. Of course, Rashi disagrees with this. Rashi doesn't. No, Rashi. No. I mean, Rashi is okay. Finish it. Rashi out for the ganze Mishigas as a minute. Whatever. This is the real whole these sort of things. So yeah. So this is important that Talmud Torah, we shouldn't meet people think Talmud Torah is valid. Talmud Torah literally is the mitzvah of studying, of thinking. Ich meine, die belangt zu nicht Sefer Amate. And Schapel, ich meine, sie meinen, that's of course what the Rambam understands. Talmud Torah, the Rambam beferish and yeah.
Long. Learning about Basra is connected.
Auch etwas ist Talachurna, aber yeah. Yeah, it's more already then because it's already, you're already using your mind. That's showing best wie ich man das gabe. At least b'shiev shelassel be'achayim echmailus. Okay. Yeah. Of course, the Rambam holds that the only point of helping people is that those people should have time to think. And if nobody gets to think, then the whole thing is useless. Okay. If it's bad, okay, yeah. There's actually another Rambam that tells you.
And even though there are many words of words from the three, but the Yeshiva Shalom, like, it's he said it's very bad. It's like, there's no trick. It's like weather, climate change, that kind of.
Ja, so lass mich da ending. Ich halte mit einem Story. Okay, Kim, was ist der geht? Let's see. Okay, this is just dran. Ja, noch dem du which is obviously like the counterpart of that. Although also the Rambam has like the most mitzvahs probably in one local is not so like 51 mitzvahs that the Rambam believes that this is noch a Schmiss how the Rambam stands about Zura, but trag like kamat alles in aber the Zura, Chokes to talk, has a lot of Chokes and a lot of things, but that's all shy to this group. It's not self-explanatory. And then what do we have? Hilchos, Shiva. Now look the Rambam. And Kim Nen a bissel. So the Rambam and Peirik here on the bottom. The first umit and Chogmach Kalims. Now I have another way of telling you what to look. In Iket Shiva Morgen of Oich, Heilig und Peirik Lameda, ja? Steht also, der erste Klal, meaning it heißt, das Mitzvahs in der Schal, was steht in Chesed, oder? Immer nach Klal sehr oid. At Shiva, Vatanet Moshe Avar. So this is, now if you look in the next place where he elaborates it more. Look at Azoi. In Aviri, Shiva Gam Kam is that class. So this is where the Peirik where he went through basically what I just told you. All the things that he put in Ilchas Shiva, which are kind of obvious. In Ilchas, nicht necessarily, in Seifen Amade. Yet Shiva is auch eine von den Sachen. It's only Loima. Was it Shiva? Minha. Dais. So number one, Shiva is a kind of a minna. It's a kind of diet. Now I'm gonna go back and Shiva is a eke. Ashelo yisid fawzet na eduktem. Shelo yisid metzias anja atoyde ele bahamenosam. It's eke, and why are you saying it's a eke? Like basically, it's similar to our first definition of ikrim, because if in own days that kind of can eat.
Das heißt, keiner nicht wollen soll eaten, sie keiner nicht soll eaten.
So now this is lame. Well, what yeah. So was sagt das so? Was der Rama sagt der Master das so? Shiach shel udam. Shem udam shel yachtev. Everyone is gonna sin, and this is a hard thing. Das heißt, I was doch beginnen. Das Modi telling me this. Okay. Es a guy to sagen, was meine ich, wenn ich sage, ich will dir was mit dem Line Rama. Was meint das keiner geht nicht, jeder eine geht sindigen. Was hat tun, muss der geht oben. She yiskol bedas shif krein. The Muslim man is gonna have wrong opinions. I got some of the richtige dies for was. She is completely stupid. You know who's stupid? Everyone. Was anyone born with a college degree? No, so everyone is stupid. Right? So think about it. Now you realize why everyone is gonna sin. Not because everyone were all bad and would make bad choices. No, because everyone gets born stupid. As simple as that. Other midde, wie wilt in Efrede sein? So manch geht the wrong midde, was nicht kann geht mit. The Muschel. Other weil nicht richtig. Other will the Gebäude Stava Ikas. And try like two bad middes. He also basically realized what he skip here. Denk dat de weiter drama was gelaufen. The regular ones. All the other Avatis he skipped. It's amazing. Because he doesn't really care about them. Because these are the neshama of the mitzvahs. The neshama of mitzvahs are mitzvahs and dias. And mitzvahs mazis are just timted to that. That's not really what you have to do tshiva on. And v'li hamen udam, jetzt was ist wichtig? V'li hamen udam, schleichel taken ze mimis loilam. Hoi massen dalt Yisrael. Baltem sind sie so in the center. Man is efshe hoi moiste ve meri, acha schleine schleutach biene.
Ach noch? No refilm.
Ich bin nicht sicher, das was man darf mit einsam mehr. Lass mir immer minna fatschiva. Ich sag, wie ist der Teufel bei ihnen, wie ist die Schule in Maschaloi koidem shecht? Okay, let's stop here. He's saying, let's say, what is he saying? So what is he saying? Say,
about this, the reason we do things wrong, just about it.
Firstly, everyone starts off bad.
Everybody's basically not know right or wrong. Right, you don't know right or wrong, yes, it's still bad, you know, it's wrong.
Right. And therefore we need Shiva, because was all get schlecht kun Shiva?
Yeah. Another thing, I think there's a reason that I'm going to ask something. All you have that nature. This meant bad nature. Just again, you're not thinking about something.
Hilchos dies, basically.
Your nature is stupid, like your nature's stupid. Now, if you can't make a hard stop on anything, that means you can't think differently than you felt yesterday. You can't do differently than yesterday. Then it's initially strong. No, if you don't believe that you can,
I don't believe it's just that way. Without saying, well, I'll know today the noise.
No, so if you don't believe that there's something that you can stop that thing, or you can stop and do,
it's something that you're doing just like that. But that has nothing to do with the religious obligation or commandments of repentance.
I remember about them, but they had it. Not them then, yeah. I'm not anything else, man.
Other thing is, if you don't believe that you could stop what you did for now, then you continue doing it. You're not going to do the Mario or stop.
You ask the person, keep this shit out. No, he doesn't. So the person
Like, able is on the west side, for the west side out that they are. Get better and better. The seconds that he gets you, this is the left side highway. You can stop going on the west side highway. Oh, now there, oh, but you missed that. The problem is what they so she missed like all. That's what Shiva did. Like, it's stop. She's a dog, it's not Shiva.
I'm in it. These look for Shiva. Like, let me.
I have a different shop. I don't think it's a carrot on the Rambam's lot.
And it's not why is it?
There's all those in there. I can't do something else. There's no reason for me to try if I can't fix the fact that I have bad diets.
Not bad diets. I've had nature.
Go. Also me the bad diet.
In both of them. It's both. Two separate things.
I can't change my nature and my thoughts. If I don't believe that I get paid for it.
Everybody knows such and all.
What do you mean everybody knows? Muftiva the fat Shiva.
No, without knowing the word of Shiva. I know I used to eat unhealthy food, and I know I can talk it unhealthy. That's a bit.
No. Wait, you have too many assumptions. I'm not having this much.
I'm like, I'll deal it with your thoughts. The village, I can't translate.
No, I ain't change.
I mean, let me try to go back here.
Ik fish hem op een vloer, dus maar wel op een sticker. Fish wel niet is. Well, sorry to use that. Rich.
I'm in it. So let me.
Was that anything else?
I'm in it. So let me. Wait. I'm in it. So I'm going to shrug. Wait. Let's go. Let me go back and step. Couldn't call. Couldn't call Hosgefen eine wichtige Sache. Maybe I said it already, but I just saw it. It says. Not to the the floor. Not as eine Sache is as Shiva, the Rambam openly calls it an amina or a daya. Depends which translation you read here. Actually, some of them have amina is Shiva. Andere Werte. Let's go back to our. Let's go back. This is very important because it changes. You have to realize what it does. In andere Werte. This is gefragt. What's information Shiva gets? See, it actually doesn't give any information lamas what you should do. What is Shiva? It's a belief. In andere Werte, habe ich gesagt, so wie in welcher Seite steht das, ist einfach am Ende. In welcher Machlaka, und wie lernt man es? In other words, so if you want to know, if you want to understand what Shiva is, another way I could say it is, is that there's some things that we do and some things that God does, right? Andere Werte, all the minutes are about God. In other words, du mitzvahs an Sachen, was Menschen davon dienen. Okay, in Sachen, Shabbos, und Leigen Tfilm, und solche Sachen. Teilbeste, was darf dienen, it's not really a darf dienen. Though was is, yeah, it is eins, and it is like facts about the world, or facts about God. Or you could say things that God has to do, which is a bad language according to the Rambam. No, so far, and that's how they'll be drash. That's what it is. There's two kinds of mitzvahs. And what do we do with those mitzvahs? What's the maaseh from them? What do we do with mitzvahs and minna? So really we don't have, but basically what we do is believe in it. That's the word. There's a problem with saying that because there's not really an action of believing in it, and so we have a chira from it. I'm in it, ich lass mich an Dingen besuchen. Ich batter es psychologically. Ich will sagen, koidem ist zu wissen, Shiva is not a thing that you have to do. And you don't have to go looking, says the for Harutas, the for Vidis, and kind of name. It's what it's now. This is going to be a question, because the Rambam does say you have to do Vidya and those things. So, question. But koidem, it's a thing that you have to know about, or you have to believe, that God does, if we could say it that way, because that's actually the traditional way of saying it. Andere Werte, jetzt der erste Drusche, the Drusche that you have to talk about Shiva is not the Drusche that the Rabbi is saying, darf man sich tauschen. Everyone knows about that already. Aber den darf man sagen, geht. Wir haben schon gewiss schon lange, dass es darf man geht. The Drusche is, if there's any Drusche to say, it's in the Rambam's language, and Kennen sagen geht. Right? Other in the more old-fashioned language, which Rambam himself is definitely going to use in the Mishnah Torah, the Eibishter geht dich Moischel sein. Ja? The mitzvah von Shiva is the min as the Eibishter dich Moischel. It's nicht the Sache, was entstehen, because that we had to do before. That's not the worst thing with Shiva. The mitzvah, the Sache von Shiva is, the Eibishter geht always smack and not have. Now, what does it mean? It goes smack and not have? It depends who you ask. And the Rambam will, that obviously means you are. No. This statement, ich look, it says in Mishnah Torah. I'll show you how, at least in the way you could read it. It can skip the part, but obviously then one of the big, and he actually I'll show you where it says. Sagt das ja befährt ein bisschen in the next stickler. In other words, the habe ich also sagen, Message von 11, weil das ist mal Tshuva. The whole idea is, and let me show you what the Rambam says. It is that now the Rambam goes like this. So let's keep at the Rambam at least. And the Rambam, I believe that in the Rambam's language, the Eibishter dich equals the guys werden besser, because there isn't like a Eibishter that has an Excel sheet that reckon. That's not the Rambam's way of thinking. Definitely, the Eibishter was my the guys werden besser. And what's the drusha von Tshuva? What's the message? What's the information? Information is as man can werden besser. Or in other words, if you want to call it a Ikke, it's basically the Ikke of Bechira. And guess what? If you open Sefer Amada, wie steht das du Bechira? And Elchas Tshuva, so say, by Kai, he literally sees that as the explanation of Mitzvah Tshuva, and it says beferish. The fisha, just a little Messina Lowy, par example, my the fikach, ja, it's a Tshuva. And andere Wette, really, I'm just trying to tell you could. And now, hier sagt jeder eine Gleib, der ist sicher, ich meine, dass Menschen gleiben, das ist noch halb nicht. So, ich weiß nicht.
Well, let me I think the Rambam here.
Now, of course, no, let me tell you what you're going to say. Make?
Okay, sure.
Let's go back to our 3. In some got to 2 oder 3 Wegen, at least. The kids at Tizung was meant that this is really a third way, right? Because it's a psychological Ikke, right? That's what you're going to say. So dann mich damals sagen können. Ich lass nicht. There's an Ikke that is logically needed in order for people to believe if you know and have a God and you know everything, etc. And there's also, like the Rambam said, there's also somewhat, I would call it psychological Ikke. In other words, they're psychological axioms. If you don't believe that you could change, you will not change. Or if you don't believe that God forgives you in the religious language, if you don't believe that God forgives, nobody will start becoming better ever. Right? Is this logically true? No. Well, you can't make the change in undemoget, but the Menschen dienen es nicht, so the kein Mensch. And therefore, in that sense, Emina is Tshuva is a very basic religious belief, and it's actually true.
Well,
In all religions. And was die sagen, okay, ich meine, jetzt nicht gesagt. Das ist basically was das gewollt sagen, right? No? Okay. It is
I mean, well, but nothing. I think we confused 2 things. I think the Rambam in Sefer Yad discusses that there's a mix of Tshuva, and here he's talking about why this particular mitzvah is a Ikke.
Of course, but he's explaining that the Tshuva is a Ikke. And it's actually referred to Sefer Yados in the ka'ikar and Tshuva to say, bring do. Be a mitzvah ziva Ikke ma'adurim. That's what it said. That's the Rambam literally Rambam's language. If you read this is a Keduma Tilchas Tshuva, was start do the Begelula. Basically, the things that you have, he doesn't literally say that it is a Ikke, but he also doesn't say that really. And the other mitzvahs, which he definitely understands that way. So he definitely believes that Tshuva. He explains why it's a Ikke, but he literally calls it a Ikke. And Tshuva is a emina. So Tshuva is a mitzvah versus tuli and epsa emina. Maybe it's a way of saying it also.
He's trying to say that's why I said. Did the Rambam believe that there is such a thing of Tshuva, and therefore he looked for seeking for it?
You're going back to the question that we keep on trying not to ask. We start Tshuva. I lost my list from Shirim. It says Shir Aleph, Shiva Keka, Shir Bais, where source. But that's a real big other. In my end, this is, of course, everything is connected. Ich try uns haben gefallen, nicht kein Sach wissen. Yeah, it could mean a lot of things, and then of course it talks about it. But this is the Rambam Pshat at least. That's why I start with something that we have more of. The Rambam Pshat is lame learn vater because I want to show you where it says what I think it says. And it says lame gain vater. Wegen dem, there's a lot of things, a lot of mitzvahs, a lot of rituals. Hamekaimim zeh das hamiti. True, interesting. It's true. Hamoel loyd. So because this is the Rambam's very famous differentiation between minutes that are useful and minutes that are true. And he kind of says here that this is both true and useful. And the mushel, was then the Sachen, was then mekaim de minne, the diem, the carbonis, as gugus halas as doines, okay, taniist. The Indian koilet, she was man she was vechiklulit, lose many to stop. This is the general thing of Tshuva nicht. In other words, he's trying not to cut. This is also says enough Tshuva. As the Eik zum Wort von Tshuva push to stopping doing things. So the Tachlis also that the reason why we have this belief that we could stop doing them is so you stop doing them. The matter is obvious why. And then if you go further and read further, you could see where he details this. The Mushel in Parak Amale wegen Yom Kippur sagt Favus ist Yom Kippur so wichtig. In other words, Favus ist Yom Kippur Kuris, wahrscheinlich kein Shabbos oder Yom Tov. Was the forcing the most important na Shabbos auch, da Shabbos doch Kurs, but nicht the Mushel Shvi ist auch nicht. Ja. And what is the minute? More Paisach and Yom Kippur. Basically, that's the way he looks at it, right? Paisach is bringt schon dann Paisach and Yom Kippur is fast Yom Kippur. But this is zwei, this is another, like two, you could bring that out. Du zwei, das ist teuer. This, it is with Rav, which proves whatever it proves, and andere Schmiss, and Tshuva. This is the minute that Tshuva could be a This is where I have the Rambam saying that saying God forgives you and saying you could change is the same thing. And he says it again in Parak Mem Gimel via that thing, the actual reasons of the Yom Kippur. For was Yom Kippur, the Anatog, weil dem was der Eibischte gesagt, Zlachti, Bechili. In dem, was tippt man dort noch, die selbe Sache, der Shune, also, this is, he basically goes back to his Pshat about the Shoif, right? And then in Parak Mem he talks about all the Karbunas, which, as he says, are all. So now, I just want to be very clear. What the Rambam is actually saying here is that this is what I mean when I say it's a psychological acre, or like one of the very important things in all religions, or maybe on all human good things. And not human condition, but human systems of trying to make humans better. Actually, some systems are missing it, and it's a big problem. Aber es ist ein anderes Schmiss. Noch als Truschen. Aber in religions, all religions basically have this concept, and not only do they have this concept, ich will sagen also, basically, if you go to the Smedrish, this is how the Rambam looks at it. If you go on, what's religion? What's religious people do for the most part? Yeah, that was Smedrish, man. This is the Zach. And with Smedrish, what's it, man? It is the 2-3 things that we do. Man, you know, the Tashlich and Shlich HaKan and Alach, they all boil down to 2-3 things, right? No, really. They boil down to 2-3 things. There is a God. We believe in him, we love him, we owe him, and one very important thing, we do Tshuva. We could do Tshuva. Or we could do Tshuva. In other words, all the Rambam is up. Deze was ook video in de affair in de Pshat. Deze was geit hem kippen, bezoekt de ganze Tag, findet mal video, 16 or whatever max they use. Yeah. Why are we saying so much video? What is it all about? Why are you making the world mishiga with, and it's not Yom Kippur Kutne, Yom Kippur Gudlen, Chataf, you call it Oile, and call it Usham, and Dalamina Dachen. What is the idea of all of these things? What are they trying to do? In the Rambam's view, they're all trying to convince you that you could get better. Yeah. Weil Mensch, you're not going to be convinced. Einmal so gewiddig, da habe ich dich mal I'm not going. Zweimal, it's time to bleiben. It's a bunch of propaganda, and a bunch of, doing deeds, all kinds of ways that we know how to convince people of things and rhetoric. But this is the Rambam's way of understanding. The other words, it's very important to have. This is the shit's Rambam, and this shit is andere. Rambam doesn't actually believe that when we're saying vidi, we're asking God for forgiveness. That's what we're doing literally. We're getting, but the idea is not about the reason we do that. That's of course we do ask God for forgiveness. That's literally what it says in the Siddur. But the reason we do that is not because like God is there some tzedreitos neffen mal ifel more zung the was bis er het. The reason is because we're trying out or in a different in another language emphasizing that God forgives, which is basically means the same thing. Definitely in the Rambam's view, and maybe even in the real view. In Eile, Maskunas of this whole thing is that Tshuva, and this yet verhämpft men over the Maße von Tshuva, in andere Wörter. The Tshuva, the mitzvah of Tshuva, the actual thing is a belief. What's the belief? I think there's some more beliefs than as if the Rambam was of Ikriman agreement. We could actually we could actually elaborate this belief from many different aspects or different things that includes, or like I say, there's things that we could broaden it and make it include a bunch of more things. We can
I'm sorry. What is this idea of Tshuva? Knowing that we can change?
Believing or knowing something.
And how does
you could get better.
Why do we
because again, like everything else, so you want to figure it out yourself. There's a zweite Schale. Again,
what?
Most people don't believe in that. Guess what? Of course.
Most people don't believe.
Because I'm misadreation? Yeah. No, most people don't believe in change. Ich hoffe, bei diesem...
If I'm hurting someone and I can't stop hurting.
Yeah, most people... There's a lot of things that most people are so stuck, verstehen nicht, die reden sich für, verstehen nicht. Now, of course, there's levels, für dem so macht, so ein Schick wegen Tshiva, so bleiben in dem.
Could be with growing up in a Judaic.
Somewhat, that's one thing, but also I think that even after the Torah, and not only after the Torah, after people, ich meine das auch da. Of course, that's one way of answering these kinds of questions, but I don't have this kind of question over here. Ich sehe nicht, dass Menschen leiden also stark and possibility of becoming better. And very, very few people seem to me to believe in that. Ganz klar, the Menschen openly, most of the people say I'm not going to change. All the people that I've asked, like at least half of them said that it wouldn't be tired. Never happened.
I include.
But Hashem, I should have felt a call wolf and Shrecha with the love. I actually think that not only that. No.
When you go to Shield,
I actually think that not only that, but I don't want to argue about the Mitzvah. I don't see that neglect to them. Could be. I don't think that most people believe in that.
I understand that the mitzvahs associated and the ordinance and the din are very important to emphasize the idea. But so I'm being verkehrt. I believe that focus should be on the Zidim and the Kabulas of the Taniyas, to me, because you want to remind the person. You want to remind the person that You want to remind that you have a way forward, despite. Why shouldn't you do all of bad things? Let me ask you, you're a big buddy. Why shouldn't you kill people? Why shouldn't you beat people up? Why shouldn't you do those things? Let's talk about why shouldn't you do a high?
V'yesh loimer.
In the Esher Pedits, wegen des Verkehr Hainis.
V'yesh loimer.
Wenn es kommt zu Bandes an Hawaii, aber was ist die jeder macht Hawaii?
Okay, v'yesh loimer. Okay, and now,
since there's some negative power on you or something, you want to know that there's a way you could erase it. It only is worthwhile for you if you can erase it.
No, so this part I don't get. Let me treff dich so sagen, zweite Weg.
Lass mich versuchen, ein Mensch.
Lass mich dich sagen, zweite Weg, den ganzen Sache.
Ah ja, muss ich sagen, das ist verdammt, das sieht das das. Nächste Mal verlust ist ein Team. Ich meine, das verlust, aber wo ist der Verlust ist einfach.
No, what's the Tshiva the Teretz of them? That's the part I don't get. How's the concept of Tshiva answer this question?
The concept of Tshiva is because we see in the Ayran and the Nevi'im that if you...
They should get better. Okay.
No, they erase the whole thing.
Wat darf ich erase in der alte Sache? Wie ist das da die Probleme reinkommen, beklang? That's the part I don't get. So it's becoming double oynish. Ich hab nicht, was the kind on. You're assuming that there's only one oynish?
Psychological thing on a person. Once he messes up, he feels horrible and he doesn't realize that he can change. He doesn't realize that there's any point in change.
So there's zwei Sachen. Oder halt nicht, man kann change. Die Alte, man kann ja change. Die Alte ist nicht stemmen. A zweite Weg ist zu sagen, there's no point in changing. Now this could be, I think that's true, it's true. Dachte, was ich will sagen. Lass mich sagen, dass noch
das ist the awful was a business. Both then Programme. Why didn't we bring in any ashtray fuck inside?
Ich lasse nicht. Ich lasse das auch nicht. Meins.
If I did this was nine, I feel the all of it. That almost helped the figure terrible. The figure was onion out by that. I feel the terrible thing. Look at me, all stop in the it's.
So let me go to another thing.
I identified why the belief is important.
They try to identify. I think that there's a very different. In my basic, quite the mobile try to convince that Shiva is not about something that you do; it's about something that you believe. Now, what is that belief? I don't think I answered that question. I answered the second question somewhat. The second question, the That's at least two ways of saying the same thing. Maybe there's more things than Mati sagt. Do noch sagen. In other words, the second question is, why is that belief important? Okay. Let's just like that move in a structure and wie ich halt auf der Welt, ja? Aleph, noch machen Slides. Aleph, Tshuva ist nicht der Mitzvah. Ich habe lieb zu sagen, nicht die Sache, was Menschen, die Sache, was der Eiref did it. Okay. In other words, or it's thing in nature, either your nature is you could change, or nature is God forgives, maybe we'll talk about other things. Number one, it's a ikke, it's a saich tzi, sigye, machlakas uekrem, nicht machlakas ha. Nicht machlakas amas, but also not machlakas amisse. That's the part that I hate more. Well, that's dumb because I hate missing. I'm nine. There's two different questions, right? That's number one. Okay. So, aufgetein. Zweite Sache ist, jetzt habe ich gerade gesagt, das ist ein Belief. For us, it's a wichtige belief, right? In other words, even beliefs, this is like another pshat nikrim. Even beliefs, there's important ones on the list, right? There's a belief, like we should believe that the sun is yellow or whatever. Okay. No, the life is nicht. That's not a mistake. So shit one, right? Not important, less important, at least than other things. Right? So why is this an important belief? Or at least an important belief for people? That's another question number 2. Now, question number 3 is going to be what exactly that belief is and how it works. And question number 4, let's leave for after. Ja, so jetzt, was ist wichtig? Ich meine, of course, this question, was ist wichtig, it depends how we define the actual belief. I think that it's important. Yes, for psychological. In other words, firstly, also for philosophical reasons, of course. In other words, right? Because if change would not be possible, for example, if that's the idea, then of course, Torah would not make sense, right? That's how most people. That's actually how most people read the question of bechira, right? Most people say, "Oh, this is bechira." That's like the intellectual question. There's no bechira, therefore you cannot give me schava, or it doesn't make sense that you tell me. It's with point. It sounds like a jumping somewhere. The question about bechira is usually either in right? Question of responsibility or blame. Second question is question of the demand. We cannot put any moral precepts on a person that doesn't have free will. Right? That's a two-way big thing that bother people for when we talk about bechira usually. And the Rambam himself says it that way. Right? As much as we basically Shiva, if we identified Shiva with bechira or something very similar to the idea of bechira, then of course Shiva is a yisod, intellectual yisod of the Torah, a logical yisod of the Torah, right?
If a person not seen the first part of the blood, we wanted to Shiva.
So the cannot Shiva team is 20, that would be saying the same thing. Let's be something like this. In other words, we have to think about something like this, and it's similar to that. None of it, like we're going back to what we're saying about categorization of mitzvahs. In Vilna, bechira is important. This is just one way, right? Bechira, for example, is an important logical axiom for the Torah. In other words, if there's like a bunch of philosophical questions that we have to discuss or figure out before we start becoming valid, one of them is definitely going to be this question, at least according to the Rambam, right? And therefore, because we have to put everything into mitzvahs. Which mitzvah talks about it, or the closest to talk about it? You kind of say it like that. It's when Shiva says, because Shiva, in this sense, Shiva is really, like I said before, the informationless. It's the thing that says on all the mitzvahs that you could do them and you should do them, right? Which is bechira, right? In that sense, it is not a new thing, right? Now, so that's definitely one way. Jetzt du noch Sachen, dann musst du noch Sachen, noch intellektuell, wenn ich will, noch ein intellektuell Weg, what time is it? And then there is a psychological thing. I think that definitely after Rambam says that it's more also. The psychological thing could be said in many ways. Number one, I think, and I actually believe that for the most part, the reason that Rambam, or at least the Rambam talks about bechira, is not for the intellectualist reasons. Or the logical reasons. It's really more for the emotional reasons. In other words, because this kind of saves me from the intellectual loops here. The Tzad reflect auf Tayed in the Free Schrein, weil Bechira Gaz angeht. Weißt du, wie denn? Steht an der, like, lehnt am Maße, Ja, was macht halt Bechira? Ich glaube, was der Concept von Free Will ist, und andere und geht in der ganzen Free Will. So gemeint zu sagen ist, ich halte Bein, ich gehe es dien. Nicht, ich gehe es anfolgen, sondern es ist auch an Bechira. Und ich bin schon echt ein einziger von zu sein, also ich habe bleiben also. So in a very big part of talking about Bechira in the concept of Tshuva, in the context of Tshuva, is the psychological one. Psychology is wichtig, we have to have, in other words, and in a certain way, most of the Torah, like the Rambam says, is psychology. It's ITIS to get people to get better, to become better. And ITIS means we work with people's nature, because we know their weaknesses and their mishigas and their illogical things, or somewhat logical things, or totally illogical things, and we try to make them better. Now, one of the very big problems, and this is a fact, and you could say it in your way or in different ways, is the thing that people believe that their ways are fixed. And it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's what I wanted to say. It's self-fulfilling prophecy. Most people that don't believe in change don't change. People that do believe in change, some of them change. So most of them don't. But it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if we go around saying that now this is kind of disconnected from the intellectual question of determinism. It's like, it can't us the hell deterministic. It doesn't really matter. And therefore we have to talk about Shiva and in the religion. Another way of saying it is that most people, most people don't believe that God forgives sins. It's for some reason, wenn machen Breslau gesagt, in the Gleibst, dass man kann Kalkulan, Gleiber, man kann Takas, he's saying something very smart, but it doesn't work. In other words, you notice something here. Rob mentioned, for some reason, beide dich a minute. Das ist so viele Minuten, Gleiber, man kann zu brechen, aber es bleibt nicht the next is half the sense man can fixen. For some reason, people have enough a minute to believe that ich kann gar nicht gerne bleibt jeder eine, for some reason. And this is, can machen a Paul, and sometimes it's like subconsciously. Everyone somehow believes in an eternal damnation, like the real Christian way, like the kids that are from Gehenim Kadis, it's so easy to believe for some reason. Goes back to my discussion that everything is Ma'ish. But this idea that of an infinitely good God and infinitely good Gan Eden, very few infinitely forgiving God, is very hard to believe. Ich weiß es, also is the fact. Does Raskma is the fact? Okay, and you're special. Most people that I know,
Something to be doing. So,
it could be. Or maybe you're not talking about exactly the same thing. You'll convince them later. No, you'll convince them later. Most people, for some reason, believe much easier that God got dich getroffen, weil God got dich möglich sagt. Even when we say möglich sein, ja, der Kleine ist echt, dass wird möglich, weißt du? Also, es hat beginnen. Ich habe gewollt sagen, this is where I said, ich habe gewollt sagen, dass as all these drushes about Yom Kippur not being mechaber without Shiva, just because even for some Tanum it was hard to believe. Okay? That's like because it's a thing.
And that it could stop finished up.
It's like complicated, maybe. Okay, so you redefined it in a way that doesn't include the things that you don't believe in. But it obviously does, man. Nah, that's what you say.
that's my that.
Yeah. Exactly. There's needs to, what he said.
Is what if the wife's something queen? Yeah, you get 50 some base. So we have to deal with believe that we feel someone
Without jumping out. Loud of
I was nicht. Of course you could. Of course you could. And that's why we have Chalik Kapure, because we still didn't believe it, so we added all kinds of conditions. But I think that's why, so you proceed to, this doesn't talk in a but that's what not believing means, right? So now we can argue if it's tak true. But I'm just showing you that for some reason, if you're a nihilist, if you don't believe in any justice in the world, then you guy is dead, so he's dead, and I'm alive. Who cares? No, the Eidanik alive, something happened to me when I killed the guy. It's not Christian. That's the concept of slicha, of chili. See?
somebody,
Why not?
something to somebody else.
God will forgive you. God will forgive you. God will forgive you. But in the Chavare, man bit mechilif in the Torah mensch. If I said he's dead, what can we do? So,
Why is the doesn't mind the such a person?
okay, so I'm wichtig so in Island. Koin Kobed is not mine, is that person's. Why should we going to be next? I'm going to tell you, Belina Edal, in 2 weeks, I'll give you a sheet about Shiva and Bezos Mata that have all kinds of different ways where it does work. Now, but let me tell you the halach. I'll be halach, okay? But this is what if I would have time, I'll talk about more about Iches. I don't think I should. But I wish I'm too the 1 second. Two Azach was that Korban. Now Korban is the one place where we have real Chavoinish from Ben Shalmale in this world is Kabunas, basically. Korban Chapas blickt der Mensch, gesündigt. And this type of Pusik, if you don't believe in this Pusik, you're stumped. Most people don't believe in that either, right? Most people say, nah, Korban is a eiche Timte mit der Tshiva, machst kein Maasef. Man bringt, that's a Baba Maasef, that doesn't say in the Torah. That, no.
Where's he going to get the cow from? Where's he going to get the animal?
There's always not of it then. Yeah, stops. But that's not what the Torah doesn't say give money to tzedakah or throw money in the sea. So this is your, not yours. If man says, Mensch, so long, people a long time before you, people look. But this is a connection to a lot of other things. That's not the pshat. That's not the pshat.
Because who cares? It's the same price of the yeah.
I've shown. It's not a punishment. It's not a punishment. Like a pura. So that's it. Auch gedoen die magede van punishment. Dat maar eens aan. Maar it's not punishment. So like a pura, right? And most people don't believe that Pasha works. The same thing, because everyone believes for some reason. Oh, is gar nicht and not sleep. Ich weiß schon was. I'm don't verstehen schon was. So gleich nicht jeder eine. Why it's so hard to believe that you put your sins on the kapura and that's it, and the kapura dies and you go. So what's going to drive in then? What kind of crazy idea is that if you sin yesterday it has problem hands? This thing does like crazy.
Because you change yourself, you know.
Let's get down your spell. And after we're talking about the method,
you're putting a star on this animal.
Yes. Was nicht. Was kannst du sagen? Noch einmal. Other Geschichte ist gut nicht. The second that you understand that there's some metaphysical thing.
But I'm still understanding. Yeah, we're mixing different things. You felt about.
It's dry. I said a lot of things. I'm just using all these examples to prove how little people believe in the concept of real forgiveness. Jeder hat zu zum steigt schon der Rambam als helft nicht. Gemäht. Zu plain, begleitet schon zu bleiben. Also du hast am gesagt von Shiva. Okay? That's my hap. Okay? Now, lastly, I don't know where I was up to. Now there's a real halacha about this. What do you mean? Now, the Mishnah, exactly. The Mishnah hat gemacht chalik, and man nicht alle kabunas as Shiva machap. Some of them you actually have to have a carbon with the Shiva, or sisira with the Shiva, or dying with the Shiva. So du kabunas, du a virus. Was is ja machap. Was man can, was in Kippur is machap afil un Shiva. That's literally what the Rambam says in Perek Aleph. Was is a virus, Busam to the virus that will bring us to the animal. The Schiff Harif is very klein, a virus. Ja, nicht other Hashemes. Is nicht gewiss, a virus. That's why a virus to give the reaction. Maybe he was from the guy's story Monsi that was not the right that kusha. And the Meile darf bring us to the body for the after him Kippur. Darf nicht. I feel that this Shiva get in. You don't have to do Shiva. Fertig. No, but darf yatin. The fact the Gemara, I brought the Gemara to Christ. I'm not gonna go to the Gemara. But there's one try, you have to believe that the Kippur works. The Gemara, I feel that the Shiva, the Gemara actually defines, the Mishnah was that, so in Kippur, eine Mechaber als einschoben. So the Gemara, was meint einschoben? The Mevat, rief zu Mevat, wie im Kippur. Duma, Shaloi, Chaper, leiche tu. Duma, sucht im Kippur eine Mechaber. Was meint, das ich halt, das ist der größte Frimme. In Kippur ist Mechaber, man darf Shiva, ja, die ist bei den Ausflügen noch im Kippur. Und alle Twimes der Giri, exactly. And alle Twimes der Giri, how does it make sense? I think now, this is a game. This is another game that everyone has. It's very easy for Apikonism, Gleiden Klumpish and Shiva, because they don't believe in a virus. Of course, the Shiva works. No, the Chacham is to be a Elochi, to be a man. They believe that a virus, Mekalkulat ala oilamet, and the Shiva is not going to allow. This guy has not allowed the guy. So the Gleiden is echt as a virus anyway.
So I'm going to have virus. You keep it.
Exactly, but that's not true. They're true from now. No, it's mechaber on smaller virus. Smaller virus. What does smaller virus mean?
Meaning things that probably everybody do, and you just want to, and you just don't want to. Smaller virus, let's say.
Nachamol, visa is mechaber without doing Shiva. Let's just say.
I don't know. Thought how that is a that's all. That means you're not providing him with the You believe that you believe in the system.
But visa nimmt das weg in a kleine virus.
Der Weide kommt von der Name God. It's only clapped
all of us are only clapping God. I don't know.
I'm going to fight.
By the way, the other fight is also only clapping God. I don't believe in that whole thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you mean not the middle of the fight is not really a catch clap to your coffin? He is hurt, but who cares that he's hurt?
Fair.
The only one that could care is God, or something like God to function. It's basically
his eyes there. He cares less.
He may care. No, he's hurt. He's not me. Why should I care? But was steht es mich? Wieso steht es meine Schummer? Or my plus? Okay, but that's just a statement. That was my name. Okay, tachlis is also. So, next, we'll do noch a Sache, but the important thing. So meanwhile, we understand that Shiva is we understand the we have to understand something, another third thing, which is more like what you were saying, but I'll tell you how I say it. And it's actually also a fetish in what we read and other places. There is really, and this is maybe the pshat in Avaris Kalas, Avaris Kamiris action that it could be. And some get doing and not attach and ikrim. There's another like thing at least that ikrim does. Maybe it's not a attach and how we define ikrim, which is that ikrim are decide what kind of person you are. Mashan can miss the mushal. The Rambam famously said, this is the most extreme and clear mushal. The Rambam famously said in Ilshis and Berish Mashnayis, and after you don't make them, that what did he do? What does these ikrim do? If you believe in them, then you could do all the virus b'Torah, literally all of them. By the way, literally, this also nobody believes, but literally all of them, and you still find joy. You can go to Olam Haba.
Right.
Yeah. You can go to Olam Haba. You could literally be a Muslim if that's what you want. What happens to your blindness? Yeah, it could be a tzayich. It could be Mchal Shams Vudavis. Actually, nicht Mchal Chvais. Kitzer. Mas eigentlich verkehrt. Kannst dir alle Mitzvahs, wo das nicht ist. What is summer? And no, he doesn't say it goes. Actually, he doesn't say it goes to some command, and he actually doesn't really believe that it goes nowhere. But let's assume, in other words, there's a
It has no meaning.
he doesn't say that. It's just, but it says you're not a Jew. That's what he's gonna say. That's at least what it says there. You're not chaylik let him happen. Obviously not, because you don't have any way to get to them out. Okay, the mitzvah or something is this not. But in other words, is a quality different. Now, how do I say it? In a very simple way of saying it is, some things, and then when the way I'm going to say it is, you see that it's much broader than that question of there's some mitzvahs, there's some things that we talk about as changing what kind of person you are. In other words, du als ein Mensch, du sagst, ist aber nicht mal besser. Und du als eine Sache, was ein Mensch steht. A Yid doesn't say anything about what you do. You're the kind of guy that's a Jew, but you're a größer Scheigitz. A guy also could be a very nice guy, but there's we could say like that. That's also a good hadguma. It's not true that halacha, but it's a good concept. Now, if we take this concept, we have to understand that this concept is actually much broader than that. And actually, if you think about this concept, ich will sagen, wie in der Teure steht der Concept, welche Mitzvah steht der Concept. Welche Mitzvah steht Bechlau in the Minna, or all these things that we're talking about, which mitzvah they say. In other words, as a parish, to which mitzvah could we put it into? Let's add the question in the Rambam's language. Welche Mitzvah, in the welche Mitzvah kann ich heranlegen? Hilchis, because the Hilchis is much broader, because I'll tell you something, we spoke about Tzaddik and Shum. Ich habe gesagt, der Schmied durchsteht, wegen Tzaddik gerade. If we talk, when the second we talk about Tzaddik and Bainim Shum, that's also a categorization on the person and not only on the things that he does, right? So there's actually a lot more there. Before we get to Bekoiris, there's a lot more. There's Baini, Tzaddik, Rusha, there's maybe two kinds of Rusha, 2 kinds of Tzaddik, there's Gesra Bekoiris, Tana Bekoiris. Now, where do all these things say? Welche Mitzvah? At least in the Rambam, put all of these things under the Mitzvah of Shiva, right? Where's that whole, there's a whole paragraph of Shiva, Fire Gimel. What's that of Shiva, Fire Gimel? You have to read told about it in the context really is what he's talking about. Shiva basically starts from a regular person and goes to that person. The other Werte, do Menschen mit a bisschen Weiß, mit mehr Weiß, mehr, until we get to Weiß, it doesn't get any Olam Haba. So why is this Hilchos Shiva? But the first that is because Shiva is a thing that is actually related to the person. Wie sage ich, kann sagen in a psychological way, like you're saying. In other words, there's a certain, and it's important to realize that Shiva is in that world. Weil, wenn es red, they kasha was ich habe gefragt, really it's a stupid, the Haimei, what gemacht is, the greatest kasha is not really, really the people are right. Ich habe echt that's not a question if we look at the actions as particles, as a bunch of actions, when we kicked off the mensch, which is actually how most human beings live. We don't actually live in the world of actions with intentions. We live in the world of there's like a continuous identity, right? Ich bin a Zasot Mensch, was is this can tell me. Ich bin a Zasot Mensch, was is about that. Ich bin a Zasot Mensch, was is whatever it is. Right. Ich bin als Mensch, so that's a different way of saying there's Bechira, really. Ich bin als Mensch, now, the big Chiddush of Tshuva is, it's not that you could start doing better actions, because that's kind of useless. I mean, that's not the information of Tshuva. The Tshuva is really about becoming a better person. In other words, this is really brings us back to the whole, this is really the where we see the whole idea that Rambam has, that the real point of the Torah is to make you a good person, not to make you a guy that has a big man count of mitzvahs. In the end of the Shiva, the Rang, like basically everything we started in the previous man, the whole everything about Chava and Shnedim Haba being the Taflas and everything. We started this. The Shiva, Parik Zayin, Parik Tasid. Plus, yeah, that's a very good chat. Ja, Lowy, is ook gefeierd. Lowy, maar Anila, ich bin nicht ein Mensch. Du noch, de kennis bringen noch reis von der Wort. Ich will da wissen, wie es connect sich mit der idea. The ganze idea von Chava, as we explained at length, is really that it's what we call virtue ethics and moral philosophy, right? Ethics that we're not talking about ethics of the action, of the command, like we're talking about the ethics of the person. Was sort Mensch willst du werden? Andere Werte drauen Schale wegen ich kreator, das sagt mehr. When we talk about ethics, welche sort Mensch will der Teure machen? Welche sort Mensch? The sort Mensch, was is Title Schmal, was hat das, Nav, Hashem, and all these kinds of things. And where does this belong? In Hilchos Shiva, because Shiva is actually the thing that says, what does it do? It actually changes the person, and actually, die ist noch der Mann, das bringt auch eine bessere Reise, was du steht befährisch in Peirik, in Hilchos Shiva, in Peirik Zion, which is basically the Peirik of Malas Balat Shiva, we could call it. Look at in Hilchos Zion, kam me ille Malas Balat Shiva. Eben schon ist Mibtel Hashem Lekai Yisrael, nehmen wir was eigentlich mit dem Zeug war einen, und ist die Mitzvahs, was Teure von uns befunden, this is the name about this Samachman, by the way. Wir Teure von uns befunden, aber ich nehme mir bikkes as mir haben wir jetzt gesagt, regeln so. Forget, ja, wie begin. Ja, ich mit beschenen. So, now what's mit beschenen? Everyone knows that beschenen Rambam's line, life mean, right? So, was auch der, was hat das mit für nicht kemal Shiva. So, nicht kann denn auf der Mitzvahs, at Mitzvahs. Of course, mit der Mitzvah there are Mitzvahs, but because you're a bad guy. In other words, you're a dovrish, Rav virus, or whichever level of Rusha you are from Pai to Gimel, so that you're in the bad side of the world. That's the one that Shiva. Now, you're doing B'shchinan, but yet, doing B'shchinan literally translates to the Rambam's world. You have the right eminence, or you have the right connections. And that's why all of these, this ganze din of being different kinds of people is actually what Shiva is about. And that's why when the Rambam talks in this, that's what English is said to the Rambam gesagt. And this noch has a reason for the Rambam was doing in for the Shema, maybe a Pidrash. Aber der ist der Rambam hat gesagt in so einem Buch, er gesagt, dass Menschen haben schlechte Diets and Menschen, right, all these things. And the where's it saying in Sefer Mensch there's diet and Peirik, and the Rambam has this weird halacha in Peirik, also Peirik Zion, the same way in halacha Gimel, steht, sollte nicht meinen, als Tshuva ist nicht mehr weiter, Shesh ben Mas, also wie es nicht, na, geschäft sich gut und Lusche auf mich. Ich einfach zurück, ich es bei Dias, Rush, Shesh, Lowy, in meiner Kasse, wie Chili. Dias and with this. So, really, we understand, this is the real Tshuva. So, nicht, das FLP, that's just because this is a halacha Sefer, of course, we have to talk about mitzvahs, which are a way to get there. But the real Tshuva, if you think about this, the real Tshuva is not on a virus. The real Tshuva is on you being stupid. Now, being stupid is not an Avaira. How do I know being stupid is not an Avaira? I'm saying, but it's like it. Yeah, or a non-medicinous person is all similar. And you darfst sagen, also wie sagt, der Mensch wird nicht geboren. Die ganze Dusche, was Muschel, ist klar, right? The Rambam very clearly understands, als keiner hat nicht werden geboren in der Platz, was will, ja? Keiner wird nicht geboren mit Schmau, mit dafür mit Lamm, mit seinem Mathemat, und doch schlösst man Buddhisch, mit seinem ganzen Muschel, was ist einmal gelernt. Das ist alles, and all these things, where do they belong? They belong to Tshuva. Tshuva is the thing that talks about the person changing and becoming a different kind of person. And this is also, yes. Ich kann da sagen, was der Charge von Series Matshiva, I think, das so der Rambam in. And also in the other way around. In other words, that's why there's also a person that doesn't believe in Shiva, which is really like the same problem. Just like that's a problem with you, it's not a problem with what you do. That's why you're the Gavra is nitche if it was about Yom Kippur. Die bist nicht, du sind nicht, als ich habe a Grazie, a große Arbeit. Die was also wie Apikoir ist dann damit was Arbeit nicht. Auf Kippe Arbeit nicht auf eine was ja.
Somewhere was still for the Bible besungen. We don't believe it. It's a bit help. You want to time.
In meine so dran mal so. In beide Gimmels so dran bam. Jeden so this dran bam was dran bam is based on, right? Jeder hat halb mit was nach Virus, drauf mit was heißt das alle Virus heißt da. Schon ist schon gesagt, was der drauf mit was Virus. And the Rabbi himself says, this is nicht, als they doing in the Lowy. Ja, this is nicht kind of numbers, it's more like a counter. Das bedarf schon all das. Was meint sich zu sagen in man language? Was meint zu sagen is, there's people that are good people, there's people that are bad people. And that's, you could see, like, the bad people do good things and the good people do bad things. That's what we talk about when we say tzaddik, a shine gomen. And this is like the reality. Jetzt, now I have a question. Was halt ich bin? Was halt means dass ich in seinen? What should a person think about himself? Now that we understand, there are the sides for the whole Excel sheet of the list of good and bad things. Why it's important?
You have to change. Oh, but
no, it's not important. It's not important. This is my own like kind of rhetorical question. This is where I come to say how you should change. But that's by the way, I'm curious. According to McCall, I'm curious. If you think about it, you're good. Usually. Okay, so but most people ich frage me, I'm curious. Okay, so wie halte ich sich an eins? Yeah, so now the answer to this is that was steht, was auf der Rambam, mit bald das ist also. Lowy le mir udam atzmoi, the fikach, the Rambam sagt, the fikach literally goes because was they zach, the fikach darf the cake and kill the what does that mean? I think that what it means is very simple. The fact, no. See, that's most of that. What I think it means is very simple. Yeah, this concept is a very dangerous concept. It's true that there's people that are bait and good that do bad things, and the people that are bait and bad that do good things. But you know how easy it is to go over from one side to the other side? It's always one thing. Der hat sich nicht an, als ich mit der Tzaddik am Ende weg gezeppen in jene. No. Mit der Zeppen when you go over to the dark side. Ich hab gesagt. Right. No, it's very important. It's also true, because you read sometimes people, they really change a few times a day. And this thing also, well, mention ich mal tzaddik, and this is what we're saying all the time about Shiva. You're not, Shiva's, or another thing that Shiva is saying, that you're not stuck in one of these categories ever. You're really always, it's true that there's something about a din on the gavra, and stuff like that, was such a rough schnois, and gesindig, I got kind of anything, but that's good for other people to know. It's not good for you to know. Because when you, like some, maybe because you know, but you can't be samach on that. Because the second you're going to do one thing, you're going to be a chrias with a scholar them killer the kavzachis. And wegen dem sagt der Rambam der Fikach, my Indian there, sieht man sich, dass ist Matschiva zu mehr Mitzvahs, und aufstehen bei Nachten so ein Slichas, but was? Because the whole idea of Seres Matschiva is that we shouldn't be that we should get the Yom Kippur or wherever. On nicht the Bein, nicht the Dusha, nor the Tzaddik, or the Bein. Wie the Vetman Tzaddik, have to do one more thing just. Under the vet, but that one more thing is not good to add to the list. The one more thing is,
because it makes me.
Yeah, the one more thing is to put yourself on the good side. Then the Kippur, it can sich einzugeben mit alle Sachen, was nicht dich. Alle artige Sachen,
You sum up.
we can figure out.
Thank you.
Okay.
I still disagree with most of the lot, but we're doing the word in mass.